Hello? Okay, is it working now? Is it okay, is it working? I literally just tested it like 5 seconds ago and it was working perfectly fine. I give up. I don't know. Okay, should we redo that? Should we redo the entire intro? Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Amber Rose, also known as the Religious Hippie. You can basically follow me on any social media platform, or you can go straight to my website at thereligioushippie.com, where we have haters will be prayed for beanies and a bunch of other items that are perfect now that fall is coming around. So, hope you guys are all doing well. So sorry for the audio problems. Again, don't know why. I have my collagen tea. It's just like black English breakfast tea with honey and some collagen powder. Honestly, it's kind of like my favorite. And with the cold weather, I've been enjoying that a little bit more than coffee. Anyways, so today is a bit of a different topic, and I'm almost positive that this is probably going to be demonetized, at least this video, because let's be honest, YouTube just hates the truth, and there's this whole thing, and it's probably going to be demonetized for talking about this whole topic in general. But on my Instagram story, I put up what topic I should cover on my next live stream. And this one specifically stood out to me. She said to talk about abortion stories and coming back to Christ, like basically healing from abortion and returning to the faith. And I thought that was really unique because over the last couple months, I've had two people, a man and a woman, both write in about their own abortion stories and how it affected them, how they found Christ again. And they didn't really share it for any other reason outside of just wanting other people at some point to have their story as inspiration. And so they gave me their stories to use eventually in a video. And I thought it was so interesting how this girl brought up this specific topic. And I had emails specifically for this specific topic. It's kind of crazy how these things work, but I definitely want to touch on this topic because I've never really touched on it before. And especially in a live stream, I feel like it's a little bit better because I can actually connect with you guys as opposed to me just being in an edited video. Um, so I'm just, yeah, great. Alex, hey, Xander, great to see you on here. Great to see all of you guys. Brendan, uh, Halvard, I'm so sorry. I butcher names. I butcher handles. So, anyways, um, but I think that this topic is really important. It's really sensitive, and I really want this to be a space where we can be honest, compassionate, and supportive. So, I know some of you guys who are watching have either directly been affected by abortion or you know a person who's been affected by abortion. And so, wherever you are, whoever you are, I want you to know that God's mercy is extended out to you. He loves you and He's waiting for you to come home to Him. So I want to share some stories from some people, like I mentioned earlier, the emails. Um, it's just very, very interesting um, just to hear these stories. And I recently went back to reread them to be like, okay, would this actually fit with the video that I want to do? And sure enough, they do. But they're hard to hear sometimes. Sometimes the truth is hard to hear. We all know that abortion is murder. And it's just really, really unfortunate that this is something we are still fighting today. But yeah, I'm also going to provide some resources in the description below for you or anyone you know who is going through abortion, healing, anything. I link some of the most popular resources below that people have found the most helpful. And then you can, of course, send this video to anyone you feel like might benefit from it to hear other people's stories. So, my own life in the pro-life movement started when I was very young. Obviously don't have an abortion story or anything like that, but I was obviously exposed to it at a very young age because of the travesty it was. And my parents wanted us to know how horrible abortion truly is. So from a very young age, my mom took us to abortion clinics to pray outside of them and to, pray for healing, etc. And of course, as a little kid, I'm usually doing cartwheels and whatever, but sometimes I feel like it's important to have kids there. First of all, so that kids understand what is going on. I don't think we should sugarcoat this for kids. Obviously, it should be child friendly, but at the same time, kids deserve to know what is going on. And I definitely think it's very, very important that this gets out there, that these stories get out there. Because when I was a kid, I didn't know a whole lot about it. I just knew it was murder. I knew it was bad, but I just didn't know how bad it really was. So, with that being said, since then, I've always been a part of, the pro life movement, a part of everything that I really sidewalk counseling. I advocate for the unborn as much as I can online, just in any way I can, because this is truly, you know, a human rights issue. It truly is. So, anyways, with my little background out of the way, we're going to kind of jump into the first email that I was sent. And I changed names and I changed certain things because I reached out to them today to ask if I could publicly share this, if they were still comfortable with that. And they just asked me to change a couple things just to make it more accurate or to protect people's identities. So, with that being said, we are going to jump into the first email. Sorry, I got to scroll up a little bit. There we go. Okay. I was 22 when I had an abortion, and for years I carried a secret shame that I was certain no one could ever understand. It's hard to put into words how isolating it felt. On the outside, I looked like I had it all together. I graduated college, I had a job, friends, and even started dating a nice man. But on the inside, I was broken. I was in a relationship that wasn't healthy before I had my abortion. It was emotionally abusive and manipulative. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I didn't have anyone to turn to for support. My boyfriend told me that if I didn't take care of it, he would leave me. My friends were all living their own lives, and my family completely cut me off once they heard I was pregnant because they tried to get me away from this guy for a really long time. And I guess this was the final straw for them. Yikes. So I convinced myself it was the best option. I told myself I couldn't be a mother right now, that it wouldn't be fair to bring a child into such a chaotic life, and I'll never forget walking into that clinic feeling numb. I felt like I had no choice, but as soon as it was over, the numbness turned to instant regret, deep, soul-crushing regret. The weeks and months that followed were the darkest of my life. I tried to push it all away, bury it deep, but it haunted me. I couldn't sleep without getting nightmares every night, and during the day, I had major anxiety. I tried to fill the void by keeping busy, distracting myself with work, tried to socialize, but nothing worked. Every time I heard a baby cry or saw a pregnant woman, the guilt hit me like a tidal wave. Shortly after, I stopped going to church. I felt like a hypocrite. How could I sit in a pew pretending everything was fine when I had taken the life of my own child? Every time I saw a crucifix, I couldn't even make eye contact with Jesus. I was sure that I was beyond redemption, that I had done something so terrible, not even God could forgive me. Nearly 5 years later, I carried that weight. 5 years of silence, 5 years of shame, until one day a friend of mine invited me to Eucharistic adoration out of the blue. I remember kind of laughing it off at first. I hadn't been to church in so long, I couldn't imagine walking back in there, let alone sitting in silence with Jesus. But she insisted, and something in me, whether it was desperation or maybe it was God's gentle nudge, it made me agree to go. The first time I walked into adoration, I felt like I didn't belong. I was sure everyone there could see through me, could see the sin and guilt written all over my face. I couldn't even look up at the monstrance where Jesus was present. But something happened that night as I sat there in silence for the first time in years. I didn't feel condemned. I felt safe. It's hard to describe, but it was as if Jesus was sitting there with me, waiting. He wasn't angry, he wasn't disappointed, he was just there. And in that moment, I realized I think that word's abandoned. I was not abandoned. That night was the start of my healing journey. It wasn't immediate and it wasn't easy, but something had shifted. I started attending adoration regularly. I still struggled with the idea of confession, honestly, and I was terrified to admit what I had done. I thought it would be met with judgment, but the more time I spent in Jesus' presence, the more I realized that I needed to let go of the shame I had been carrying. One Sunday before Mass, I finally gathered the courage to talk to the priest. I remember shaking as I asked him if he had time to hear my confession, and he smiled kindly and said, "Of course." I poured my heart out into that confession. I told him everything: the fear, the abortion, the guilt, the way it had eaten me alive. And when I was finished, I waited for the judgment, for the anger, for the condemnation, but it never came. Instead, the priest looked at me and he told me something that changed my life. He said, "Jenna, God has been waiting for you. His mercy is greater than any sin. There is nothing you can do that will ever make him stop loving you." I broke down in tears. For the first time, it felt like I could breathe again. I received absolution, and in that moment, it was as if the weight I had carried for so long lifted off my shoulders. I walked out of that confessional feeling like a new person, like I'd been given a second chance. And since then, I have found so much healing. I started volunteering with a pro life group that supports women facing unplanned pregnancies. I want to be the person I wish I had when I was 22, the person who tells women that they don't have to choose between their dreams and their child, that there is support, and that they are strong enough. I also started sharing my story with other women who've experienced abortion. I realized that my silence was keeping me in shame, but speaking out has brought so much freedom, not just for me, but for the women I've connected with who feel the same way I once did. I named my baby Felicity Marie, and some days are still hard and some days are still very difficult knowing that my baby would be 7 this year. The wounds don't magically disappear, but I am no longer living in shame. God's forgiveness has renewed me, and I will fight tirelessly for unborn babies and their mothers. That is just goosebumps. The first time I reread that email when I was going through these emails, I genuinely started crying. Like, I genuinely was like, wow, this is absolutely insane. Like, the fact that somebody went through this. First of all, the fact that so many women go through this specific thing every day and they carry that guilt with them. I mean, we know that there are, unfortunately, a lot of people out there who celebrate abortion. But I truly believe that it comes from a place of guilt, a place of knowing it's wrong and just leaning into the pride and leaning into the hurt as opposed to finding healing. And you see these people, you see these women who support abortion or who have gone through an abortion or they celebrate it. Their eyes are always crazy. They're either crazy or they're empty. There is nothing. And it's so sad to see so many women fall for this, to view it as something that's empowering, when in reality, it's cowardice, and it's really, really sad to see so many women coerced who don't want abortion, but get coerced, whether it's by the media, their boyfriends, their family, their friends, whoever it might be, themselves, and have to go through the extreme pain of knowing that they ended the life of their child. It's very difficult to hear about, and I think a lot of times we can become numb to these stories because we hear about them so often. If, you're in the um, Catholic world like I am, and you're constantly helping women who have gone through abortion and you're constantly trying to give them aid and stuff, sometimes we become seasoned, and we stop feeling like, we become desensitized to all of these things. And that's a real travesty. We need to understand that these emotions, these wounds are raw, they're real. And the way that we're going to reach these women is through prayer and through helping them, not by condemning them and whatever else. I mean, the amount of pro life rallies I've been to where pro lifers are screaming across the thing about, like, don't murder your baby and all these things, which are good, but in such a tone of voice that it's almost like, you're killing your baby. And, it's not inviting, it's not welcoming, it's not helping. If anything, it's pushing that person to go through with the abortion. And it's really, really sad to see, especially as a pro-lifer. And I try to tell them, like, you're not helping. Please stop screaming at these women. Instead, kindly offer to talk to them, call across a thing. Hey, I'd love to talk to you about your baby. Your baby is this big if it's this month old. And for me personally, it's one of those things where we need to approach these situations with kindness, compassion, and we need to help them understand that God is merciful. Yes, an abortion is a mortal sin, 100%. You have to confess that. But confession is there, The church is not for the perfect, it's for the sick. It's the house of the sick. And so we need to open and lend a hand to those who are truly hurting and in pain. Um and that goes for men and women. Sorry, women and men. And so this is the second email that I was sent. And, it's so crazy to hear about these people going through these stories. Okay, so let me see here. There it is. Hi, Amber. My name is Jimmy, and I was 23, fresh out of college, when I found out I was going to be a father. My girlfriend Emily called me one evening, her voice shaking as she broke the news, and I'll never forget the fear in her voice. But for me, it was different. I was scared, sure. I wasn't exactly prepared for fatherhood at that point in my life, but there was something about the thought of being a dad that made me hopeful. Like maybe this was the next chapter I was supposed to step into. Even if I wasn't necessarily ready for it, I was excited at the aspect of having a baby. But Emily didn't feel the same way. From the moment she found out, she wanted out. I could tell that she was scared about her future, what people might think of her, and how her family would react. She talked about her career plans and how this pregnancy was going to ruin everything. And as much as I tried to understand where she was coming from, I just couldn't shake this feeling that we were supposed to have this baby. I wanted to keep it. I thought we would make it work. But no matter what I said, she wasn't convinced. We argued about it a lot. I tried to tell her that I would be there, that we could do it together. I even offered to get another job and raise the baby on my own if she didn't want to be involved. But it didn't matter. Her mind was made up. She didn't want the baby, and nothing I said could change that. I'll never forget the day she told me she had scheduled the abortion. My heart sank. I begged her not to go through with it, but the truth is, I felt powerless. I couldn't make the decision for her, and no matter what I did or said, it wasn't enough. It made me feel completely helpless. The day of the abortion, I was at work. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the clock, knowing exactly what was happening, and I felt sick. My child was being killed. Our child was being killed, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. This went against everything I knew as a man to serve and protect. That day broke me in ways I didn't expect. I thought I could just get past it and move on, but I couldn't. The weight of it hung over me like a shadow, and I couldn't escape it. And for a while after the abortion, Emily and I stayed together. But our relationship was never the same. We didn't talk about what happened. She didn't want to. And I tried to push down the pain and tried to act like everything was fine. But inside, I was a mess. I was angry at her, I was angry at myself, and just at the situation as a whole. I didn't know how to cope with the loss, and eventually it drove us apart and we broke up a few months later. That's when the real loneliness set in. I didn't know who to turn to, and it's not like guys talk about this stuff. I had no one who could relate to what I went through, and I couldn't exactly sit down with my buddies and say, "Hey guys, I'm grieving the child we lost." So instead, I decided it was best to bottle it up and shove it down. It wasn't until years later that things started to change. I was talking to a friend from my parish, someone I hadn't seen in a very long time since I had stopped going to Mass, but we were catching up, and eventually the conversation shifted to faith and healing. I don't know what came over me, but I ended up opening up what happened with Emily. I hadn't talked about it in years, but once I started, I couldn't stop talking. I told him how I still carry the guilt and how I feel like I'd never get over it. He told me that I should discuss this with a priest. Honestly, that was the last thing on my mind. I already felt guilty and I didn't need a priest to tell me what I already knew. But he insisted and gave me the number of a priest he trusted. I held on to the number for a few days before working up the courage to text him. The message was a lot longer than I would have liked it to be, but I tried explaining everything the best I could. The only response I got back was, "Are you free for coffee?" I was and sorry. I was and I met up with him. Um sorry. I was and I met up with him. He was young like me, and as soon as we spoke, I felt at peace. He then asked me to reiterate my story in person, and I dove into all of it, and he listened patiently. At the end of it, he told me that his sister was aborted when he was just 9 years old. I could see the pain in his own eyes as he talked about the loss of his sibling, wondering why he was chosen, but they didn't want her. We bonded over these shared experiences, and I had my first confession in years right there in front of the cafe. It's quite a unique experience. It was the most healing experience of my life. Now I pray for Emily, wherever she might be, that she too can find healing. I never miss a pro life march or rally in my state, and I always advocate for fathers who are victims of abortion. My child would have been 4 next year. It hurts, but I am able to now help other dads in the same situation and help support pregnant women in need. So these are just, yeah, the stories that come into my inbox, truly inspiring, but also truly just very heartbreaking. I mean, to hear about these stories, to know that these are real people, to know that they have gone through the most unspeakable pain. There is no pain like losing a child, especially when you do everything possible to be able to save that child, to offer everything you have and still not have any control. Feel like you have no control at all. And it's so disheartening when you hear about these types of stories where the father tries everything he possibly can. There was a very popular story a couple what was it? A couple was it last year? Might have been a couple years now, where a father was literally in the parking lot crying, begging his wife to or his girlfriend or something to not go through with the abortion. He was literally pounding on the abortion door, crying on the steps, begging her not to go through with it. The pain, that you feel, feeling that helpless, knowing that your child, the child that is alive and is was created by God, he knit that child together in the mother's womb, knowing that they have dignity, that they have life, and feeling as though you can't do anything about it. Like, that is just such a difficult situation to be in, a difficult one to hear about, but a difficult situation to be in. And I don't think a lot of people ever think they would be in that type of situation until it happens to them. And they think to themselves, what have I done? What can I do? And you can try everything you possibly can, but because of our really, really crazy abortion laws these days, and have certain abortion states being sanctuaries, it's very disheartening to see that even if in their own state they can't get an abortion, you think, oh, okay, my child's safe. They can just hop to the next state and boom, they can get an abortion right there. Illinois, where I live, it's literally known as an abortion safe haven. It's so sick. And it's just so crazy. And yes, yeah, Xander, exactly. It's beautiful. He never misses a pro-life rally or a march. And it just makes me think, what more can we do? What more can we do as people to help support these families, to help support these moms, to help support these dads? What can we do in our life, whether it is prayer, going to these marches and rallies, or donating to a crisis pregnancy center? What can you do to help these people, to help these unborn babies? um, and sometimes people think that after they've had an abortion or after someone they know has had an abortion, that they're not forgivable, that they're separated from the church permanently. But that's not true. The church has always taught that God's mercy is available to everyone through reconciliation. And you have to come back and repent of that. But St. John Paul II, he's actually his feast day today in oh my gosh, Evangelum Vitae, probably butchered that, but he specifically addressed women who were healing from abortions. And he said, the church is aware of the many factors which may have influenced your decision. And she does not doubt that in many cases it was painful and even a shattering decision. The wound in your heart may not yet have healed. Certainly, what happened was and remains terribly wrong. But do not give into discouragement and do not lose hope. Try rather to understand what happened and face it honestly. If you have not already done so, give yourself over with humility and trust to repentance. The Father of mercies is ready to give you his forgiveness and his peace in the sacrament of reconciliation. It just, it really does drive home the fact that God is merciful and that we do need to repent. Yes, of course, but nobody is too far gone. You know, it's so important that we recognize that God is, yes, just, but he's also merciful and loving, and he wants you to come home to him, just like the prodigal son, just like the one that left the 99, you know? And so we all need to do our part and pray for these babies. Yes, Maria, pray for the babies and for their mothers, that they have conviction and that they go to confession if they're Catholic, and that they can get the healing that they need. Um, and, you know, I think overall, fathers have this duty, you know, to protect. And I know that many women are coerced into abortions because their boyfriends, their husbands, whatever, don't want to have to deal with the responsibility. And it puts the woman in a really difficult situation where maybe she relies on the boyfriend or the father or, you know, her husband or whatever for money or for housing or something. And she feels as though if she were to go through the pregnancy, she would lose all of that and she'd be homeless. And what kind of life would that be for the baby? Most of these women don't realize the resources that are out there for them, that are available for these women. There's Rachel's Vineyard. There's pro-life priests. There's Waterleaf. There are crisis pregnancy centers all over that are willing to not just help women get back on their feet if they don't have a car or formula or diapers, but also financially help these women, emotionally help these women with counseling. They show these women the ultrasounds of their babies. And I guarantee you, 99% of women who see the ultrasound of their baby choose life, because they have been denying themselves so often that it's not a real baby, it's not a real baby, because that's what society tells them. When they hear that heartbeat, when they see with their own eyes that, yes, in fact, it is a baby, it doesn't look like a clump of cells. It doesn't look like a parasite. Babies look like babies. And for me, it's like when women see that, there is no way that their heart does not turn towards that child. You know, there's no way that they don't look at that ultrasound and go, you know, oh no, that's not a baby. It is, you know, it's undeniable. So it's very, very interesting to see how abortion has really been, it's the genocide. I mean, truly, more people die from abortion than almost anything else. And the most dangerous place for a child right now is the mother's womb. And you know, I know elections are coming up and everything. I cannot actually speak on elections specifically, or I can't endorse specific candidates because I am a nonprofit and I could lose my nonprofit status. If I do that, I'm basically like the church. Use common sense, choose the lesser of two evils, and just know that, you know, no president has ever gotten into the White House by being completely 100% pro life. In order to get to the White House, you do have to still kind of play the game. And I don't always agree with it. Obviously, abortion should not be at all tolerated in any way, shape, or form. But there's one candidate that is for abortion up until birth and after birth, and is anti-Christian, anti-Catholic, and continues to be that way. And there is one that isn't. And even though you will never agree with a candidate 100%, we do have a duty to vote, and we do have a duty to vote for the lesser of two evils. So, in my experience with the pro life movement, the best ways you can get involved is either volunteer at one of your crisis pregnancy centers. You can donate money, time, formula, diapers, whatever it might be. I know one girl, what she would do is she would take out like $100 or something. And when she'd go to Target, she would put them in like on top of like formula bottles or in diapers. So that the mother who bought the diapers or whatever would find an extra $20. And, it's just like a beautiful surprise, a wonderful way to support without, you know, whatever. I know another friend, they put these little phone numbers and like websites and stuff into pregnancy tests. So if somebody gets a pregnancy test, they open it up and there are resources for crisis pregnancy centers, ultrasounds, etc. In case that person is having an unplanned pregnancy, there are resources put into the pregnancy test for that person to access. You can also obviously go to rallies and marches. You can help donate. You can talk to your friends. You can go to your church and see if there's anyone who needs support and needs to know about these resources. There are so many ways that we can help women. And I think a lot of the times we just assume we have like bystander syndrome where we're like, oh, somebody else will do it. Someone else can do it, like whatever. But in reality, like, no, you have to be the one. You have to decide, I am going to be the one to help. I am going to be the one to make a difference. And that is how we actually make a change when we realize that change starts with us. It doesn't start with Phil down the street or, Mildred up in apartment 40B. It starts with us. And I think we just really need to remember that. And yeah. So, anyway, guys, I know this was a bit of a shorter live stream. I know I usually go for a bit longer, but because those emails were so long and everything, I just figured that, it'd be best to kind of cut this one a little bit short. Yes, Mildred was the name that came to mind, Xander. I was like, yes, this is the name. This is what we're going with. But anyways, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and I hope you guys reflect on what I talked about in this live stream today, because this is a big, big topic, and it's not one that should be taken lightly, especially in today's day and age, where we really do have to make sure that we're protecting our next generation, for real. So, with all of that being said, I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day. And don't forget, if you guys need anything, whether it's jewelry, books, or whatever, my affiliate links are below for Tan Books, Blessed is She, which has like wonderful planners and everything. And then, of course, Immaculate Blessed for Catholic jewelry. So, if you guys need anything, it's a wonderful way to help support the ministry while also getting a beautiful gift. So, I really appreciate that. But yeah, happy feast of St. John Paul II, and I will talk to you guys in the next live stream. Bye, guys.